You have found home games. That is Steve Milton from the Hamilton Spectator down at the far end. Bubba O'Neill, face of CHCH TV Sports. Rick Zamperin, voice of CHML Radio. He does a morning show. Get up really early. You can listen to him. I'm Scott Radley from the Hamilton Spectator and 900 CHML. And Rick, a couple weeks ago, not even that now, the Argos hosted the Hamilton Ticats. They're bitter rivals in Toronto. And only a little over 9,000 fans showed up. 9,000 fans showed up. I mean, is this evidence that as a spectator sport in the city of Toronto, the CFL is now officially dead?
Well, I'll preface my comments with this. We're still in a pandemic, so obviously they can't get full capacity. So they're at about half capacity. But even saying that, about half the fans in Toronto, I think, were from Hamilton. So you could say really 4,000 people from the GTA or Toronto went to that game, which is dreadful. So yes, the death knell has rung, the anvil has dropped. The Argos are so far down the sports totem pole in Toronto, it's not even funny. It is kind of funny, and it is kind of sad because this is a team that has an illustrious history and is really an afterthought now in the Big Smoke.
I'm old enough that my dad used to take me to games at Exhibition Stadium where 45,000 people were there every single game. And there was a couple of seasons where they were, I remember, like 2-14, or they were bad teams. It's gone. And I'm not knocking our conversation here, but this is such an old, tired conversation. They're not coming.
The numbers, but the numbers just made it so real.
This has been like this for a long time, Scott. This team is trailing behind like a rugby team, an outdoor lacrosse team. The history is wonderful. It's been a great run. I think it will always be here. It will always, because you need to have a Toronto franchise. But it is, I hate to say this word, but it is what it is because it's not changing.
I think I'd have to agree that it's going to take for years again. And they've never we can say, well, they've had a fresh start so many times. They've had a fresh starts and never stuck with it. And there's something that they can do there. But the problem is they keep trying to attract, I think, who they used to have. Those people aren't around anymore. You've got to rebuild this thing up from the bottom up, and it's going to take forever. And what that means is MLSE has to stay committed to the ownership. Now, they're going to partly do that because they've got money in the broadcast. They've also, I mean, what does it hurt them really to have a few extra dates there? But they aren't spending, in my mind, any time on right now. All of MLSE, this is again like you thought. Well, MLSE is going to build it up. They keep saying they're going to build it up. They're spending all their time right now because they got a far bigger disaster going on in that building right now than the Argonauts, and that's Forge, or that's not Forge. They're not a disaster. Toronto that's TFC, and yeah, Toronto FC is a bigger, and I don't even know. It doesn't even feel like they're marketing this team anywhere. There is a way to do it, but 10,000 is a horrible threshold to be under in this league. I don't call it officially dead because there's a lot of reasons that it's going to be, but it's very precarious. And that's why the XFL thing or something like it is not dead, because the Argos say they want it.
Steve, I admire your optimism that there's still a way to do this, but
I'm not optimistic. Yeah, I'm not optimistic.
I know what you're saying. When you said that, there's still a way maybe to make this work. They said when they moved out of the Dome to BMO Field, this was the salvation. A field was the problem. No, it didn't work. They said, we're going to do this. We're going to do that.
There's reasons for that.
Everything has failed. And now when you're under the 10,000 for your best rival on I think it was on a Saturday, was it not, or a Friday? Like a time that was not.
Well, it was a Friday night. It was right. Yeah.
Rick, this. And again, Bubba's right. This has been going on for a long, long time, but there's a certain threshold at which you get to where you say, you know what, the patient is now where we're getting to the point.
But who sets that threshold? Who sets the threshold? You, me?
If you were the spouse standing next to the bed and your spouse was lying there, the equipment is now saying it's time to make the decision about whether the plug should be pulled. That's how dire this is now.
Yeah, this is flatline territory. And listen, I'm not even considering the XFL at this point. I think MLSE I don't have any inside information on this, but I think MLSE is biding its time for an NFL franchise. I think that's the long-term play, whether that's 10 or 15 or 20 years. The clock is ticking on the Argonauts franchise, sadly, and it'll be due to the NFL finally coming to Toronto. It's one of the biggest markets in North America, TV-wise, population-wise, And one day that league will come up north and it'll be the death of the Argonauts and maybe the CFL. I won't go that far right now, but certainly the death of the Argos.
Oh,
Let me
it's
ask
it'll
you
kill
something.
it.
It's been a great run in Toronto.
Sure
And
does.
as I said, this has been going on for years. They've been dead for years. When you have the most popular sports, arguably one of the greatest sports figures in Pinball Clemens, and they can't find a way to run or attract crowds, promote the team, it's just not going to happen. And I think the league likes to keep the team afloat because it's Toronto, right? It's the big smoke. I think Maple Leaf Sports and Entertainment don't mind if they lose money on it because it's just a property for them. It's a game. And as you said, maybe they are playing the long-term game for an NFL franchise. And in terms of TFC, like, at least there's a core following for TFC. There is not a core following for the Argonauts. I don't know who.
And the sport itself is growing.
I know no one. You know what? I'm not bragging. I know a lot of people, and I don't know anyone that's going to an Argo game. No one, or wants to go to an Argo game.
There's nothing sexy about the Argos. There's no buzz. There's no superstar. There's no promotional figure. You look at TFC, they got those guys. You look at the Raptors, plenty of those guys on that team. Maple Leafs, the same. The Argos just don't have that sexiness to them.
Steve, take us home.
Well, I can't disagree with any of the above. Whether it's a death knell or not, I'm still, because there are a lot of people working to keep it afloat or wanting to try and keep it afloat because it's so necessary, because the league does fold if the NFL does come into Toronto. I mean, it might not hold overnight, but that is the end of it. It'll be a house league of some kind.
The explanation, or it's not an excuse. The other side of this always given is that, well, look at the TV numbers. The TV numbers for Argos games are pretty good. Look, we're not going to dispute that as we go here. But the fact is, if you can't get 10,000 people into a football game in the biggest city in this country, you have got a big, big, big problem. What do you think, though? Are we right? Or are we wrong? We'd love to hear from you. Twitter handles are coming up next. You can contact us. You can respond to this. You can comment on this video. We would love to hear from you. Take care.